So we're going to start on this is just a little 8 by 10. This is just my little demo. I painted this on a piece of, I think it's watercolor paper that I painted this on, but this is where we're kind of trying to head to. So we're going to see how well we do with this. All right, so we have our blank little, I'm using a canvas board for this little project. So here we go. So I'm going to take a little bit of white first off, and I'm just going to put a coat of that on here because sometimes these little dollar store canvases do not have a whole lot of gesso or primer on them. So I like to put a coat of white on there to appease myself mostly, but sometimes the paint just doesn't go on as nicely if you don't do this with them. So I'm doing it. We're doing it. All right. So we have our little lamb in our lavender field. So we're trying to just, it's a simple sort of painting. It's not super detailed. So not a real tough one, but hopefully we have enough time to get as far as we can with it. We shall see. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Thanks for sprinkling, Kelly. Appreciate that. All right, so we have our coat of white on here, and I'm just going to go right in. I'm not going to dry that. I'm just going to head right on in there. Oh, I forgot a color. I need a color here. So I have some white, some Hauser light green. I have a little bit of royal purple, and I put a little burlap there too. So I want to start with, I kind of just want to add a little bit of that burlap and white in here first. Just going to give a little hint of color in there. We'll get this background in place, and then we can get to working on our little guy. All right, so I'm going to put some purple up here. Now, the reason why I put purple in the background is because I kind of wanted the illusion of there was lavender field behind my, so without having to, paint a bunch of elaborate lavender flowers in the background, we just kind of make it a bit of an illusion that that's what's back in here. So that's the reasoning why the purple sky. Now I have a lot of paint on there. Now I'm going to grab in some of that burlap as well. I want to kind of just mix this in. I know this looks like a schmozzle right now, but hopefully it'll all make sense in a second. And I'm just sort of slip-slapping that on there. And then I'm going to start bringing in some of this green that is our ground and kind of blending it up into that. Now, if I wasn't under a little bit of a time constraint with, I would take my time a little bit more with this background and, not be so quick about it, but we got to get things happening here. So we just want to get this into place. Now you can bring a little bit more dark green in the corners over here. That is kind of what I'm saying about I would play around with it a little bit more. Because with this kind of background, blended background, it's, you stop when you're happy with it. You stop when, you can play with it forever, but you stop when all is well with it. To your eye is what I'm trying to say. Now, as I'm looking at it, I want to add a little bit more dark purple up in here. I'll just get some water out of that brush. And I just want a little hint of darker purple here and there. Now my lamb will be here in the center, so I'm kind of focusing on outer places out here where we're going to see it. Just trying to get that smoothed out properly. So yeah. So, you can mess around with it. I'm not going to get too much more crazy with it because we have to dry this and get our lamb on here. Anyways, that's kind of the idea. The idea where I was going. All right, let's get that dried, and we'll get some new paper towel because that one's pretty saturated. Hello, Jan. Miss Connie. All right. So normally I share over into BuyTube as well, but tonight it wouldn't connect. So we're just on Facebook tonight, and I'll upload it over there after the fact because, you know, again, we didn't have time for such silliness. Sometimes it connects, sometimes it won't. All right, we're getting there with our dryness. Move that out of the way. All right, now we're gonna get our, it's still a little wet there. Get our little line drawing over here. Bear with me with the drying process. Takes a hot minute. Takes a hot minute. Hi, Deanna. Hello, Miss Kelly. A couple Kellys in the house. Strangest of things. I don't know if anyone else is having issues with their comments not coming up on the screen. Mine have been wonky for a week or so now. I don't know what is the deal, but I wish they would fix it so I can see what you're all saying. You know? Anyways. All right, so we're going to bring our little lamb over here and just get him, you know, situated where we want him. That looks fair. Again, for demo purposes, we're just going in. We're going in. All right. So we'll get our graphite under here. Let's get this turned just a wee bit. All right, that'll work. All right, so what we want to do is get all of the outline of our lamb on here. I feel that shifted. I feel it shifted. We're gonna roll with it, my friends. We're gonna roll with it. All right, we get his shoulder. We have a little indent here where his legs go together. His back. And then his ears. And then we're gonna start base coating this fella out. And I think that's all we need on there right this second. I am going to put this little bit of line there where the top of his head meets that. All right, so there we have it. So we're going to base this guy with some buttermilk first. Get that all in there. And I'm going to do like the whole lamb with buttermilk first, and then we'll add his little fuzzies with some white after, but we have to get this sort of on here. So bear with me in the base coating stage. It'll take a sec to get this on here. So how's everyone doing? How's the Craft Around the Clock group doing? Has anybody been over watching any of the other crafters tonight? I have not, because I've been getting ready to paint this little lamb with you. I always like to do a little bit of a demo before I do these, because sometimes I'll come on and wing it, but I really feel more comfortable if I know where I'm going, and then I can paint it a little quicker than if I'm trying to design and think at the same time and get it all figured out while I'm live. But we had time tonight to get a little demo done, so that made me happy. So now we can just replicate it and hope for the best, hope that we have enough time to finish him. So I'm just leaving a little bit of space in there so I know where those legs kind of are, so I can shade in there after. Get this on here quick as I can. So he kind of just looks like a little blob right now. He looks like no one. Just a little buttermilk blob. Hopefully we'll make him come to life here in a minute. All right, and as for ears, we have to go in there as well. So I'll use this bigger brush to do this larger part, hopefully without any casualties. And then I'll bring in a smaller brush to get that bottom side. Guess we'll do this side first. Wasn't sure which way I wanted to go there. All right, once we get this on, I'll fill in also the center of his ears with a little bit of pink. And then we'll give this coat a good dry and get a second one on there for some coverage quickly. All right, so I used a little bit of blush pink for the centers of his ears. So we'll just get that in there and hopefully get rid of all of that purple that's under there. Now we can see just our lamb color. And I'll check comments while we're drying. All right. Here's Miss Dana. We're making a little lamb, Kelly. Miss Kelly. So this is my demo and where we're headed. This is what he's going to look like when we're finished. He's pretty cute. Pretty darn cute he is. Alright, so that's looking pretty good there. So I think that we'll get a second coat on here now. And I think 2 should be enough, and especially for demonstrating. I think that we can get away with 2 coats of buttermilk. Because we're still going to be adding a layer of white over top of this to make him look fuzzy. What's our time like? Always checking the time. Once we get the basing done, it's, you know, a little bit better, a little bit quicker. Once this takes the most time, I think, getting all of the base color down, but it's an important part we have to do. So again, if I was having a little bit more time, I might put a third coat or even spot coat this buttermilk a third time. That's if I was, you know, being picky and playing with it a little bit more, but we're going to go with 2 for this purpose of this little segment. And I'll get that graphite line gone, so I got to come down a little bit more to cover that up. We don't want that showing. And we'll put another coat of pink in those ear centers. And again, we'll give it another dry, and then we can start some shading and defining his little body parts here in a second. All right, so now we can see the shape of him at least. Clean these brushes out. Grab my trusty dryer. Oh, sheesh, I don't know, Kelly, where I get the inspiration. There's so many different things I want to paint all the time. So, I mean, I don't know where it comes from. Hello, Deborah. Okay, so let's get some shading happening. So I'm going to shade with a little bit of that burlap color that's right there already on my plate. So now we're just going to get the definition of all of these little parts. So I'm going to start up here and go along his ears. So we just want to make sure we know where all these little parts are. Because right now, like I said, he just looks like a big old buttermilk blob. And we're going to go under his chin, under his neck, I should say. And in here, so we know where those little legs are. Bring some down his little back side here and along the bottom edge a smidge. And then we have this leg. Also in here, there's like a little V in here that we want to kind of define. And then of course I'm going to go along the bottom edge along all of this. And I'll bring some up this side a little bit. All right, now that this is dry, I want to come around this inner ear a little bit with that burlap too. And also under this little part on his head. I'm also going to come along this bottom edge of his face. And I wouldn't be too particular about, like, I'm not being very particular about this shading because I know that I'm going to be adding my white over top of this as well. This is just so that we can see where all of the little parts are once we put our white on there. A little more down here. And we'll dry that. Now I'm going to grab some burnt umber because we want to darken just the edges of those shade areas down a little bit more. So I'm going to grab a little bit of that. And everywhere we shaded, I'm just going to add just on that very edge, tight in there, so we can still see our burlap color. But I do want that little extra bit of darker brown in there. And you can kind of hit that around the ear a little bit too if you want to. And we can put a little bit along this edge too. And then we're ready to start our white. I just want to shade his ears a little bit first, inner ears. I got some wild berry here. And I'll go along the top edge. And then along his face. Dry that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of white and just add a little white highlight on those inner ears on that bottom edge. And then we can start working on some fur. I can see already that my time is ticking away so fast. Alrighty, okay. So we're just going to take some plain white. I have, and I might even use my number 5 round. I have this filbert brush. I'm going to try it first. And I'm just going to take that plain white and I just kind of in a circular motion. And I think I am going to go in with my round instead, my number 5 round. I kind of like it a little better for this. So I'm just literally going in a circular motion. I'm going to go over those edges just a smidge, but I'm not covering all of my buttermilk. I'm still able to see a little bit of it under there. Just so we have that kind of two-tone contrast going on there. So we're just going to get a first coat on here so you can kind of see how I got that sort of fuzzy look. And I didn't cover up completely my shade in there. I want to still be able to see it, but I did kind of, bring a little bit up in there just to make it look furry. So this is how we did it. And we're going to just keep going all the way around here on his body. So that little part there where his leg meets, I kind of went over that a little bit too, just to make it look like there was the illusion of fur there. And I think you know what I'm going to do with this guy is I'm going to get as far as I can till 10. And I have another craft around the clock segment scheduled for next week. If we don't get it finished, which I'm pretty sure we won't, I'm going to leave it and finish it in a part 2 on my next craft around the clock segment. So if you want to come back, I think I'm next Thursday as well. Don't quote me on that, but I am back next week at some point. So we'll just do a part 2 on this little guy and finish him so that you can see the whole thing start to finish. So now I'm not going to sweat it because I really want you to see the whole thing. And I will have this template available. So if you want to grab one, you can give him a try yourself. So there, you can see he's starting to look a little furry. Just by... Now I suppose you could use a stencil brush for this, but I think it would look... I didn't want it to look stippled so much as kind of curly sort of lamb hair. So that's why I opted to do it this way. Now it's not a right way or a wrong way. It's just how I thought I could get that look the best way I could. Now that's kind of a first coat on there, which is looking pretty good. Now I will come back and add another little bit to that to brighten it up, because when the white dries on that first coat, it sort of fades out a bit. So I will add a second coat to that spot here and there. Now I am going over the edge here on this a little bit, just again to make it look a little furry on those edges. Same over here by the ears. It's kind of a relaxing thing to do, this little swirly paint. So I'm leaving his face because I'm not going to put the little curlies on there just yet, because I want to add his face details first so I know where to. Anyways, it's just the steps in the process that I took. So I'm going to leave that for a second. I'm going to move over to his ears. Do the same thing. We're going to get those little swirls in there, and I'm going to come over just a bit on that ear center to have that fur kind of coming over on top of that. And we'll come along this bottom edge too, and I'm still going up into that and off the edges here just a little bit. Yeah, I'll post the day and time, Kelly. I will. Yes, this is an 8 by 10. And do I double load my brush for shading, or just side load the brush with the shading color? I do load it. Let me just show you. I load it just on that corner of that pointed. I use an angled brush, and then I just kind of work it back and forth like that to load my color. So if that's what you mean by double loading, then yes. Double loading to me has always been using two colors at the same time, but your terminology might be a little bit different than mine. But that's typically how I load my brush, what I just showed you. Just getting this other little ear done here. We have 9 minutes left. So yeah, definitely we're doing a part 2 on this guy and Craft Around the Clock next week. So as Kelly asked me to post the date and time of when we will do part 2, I will post it here on my page so you know when my segment is. And if you're on my Telegram or my Facebook channel, I'll also post it there. All right, so we have our first sort of coat on there. Now, as for his face, I'm going to use this little filbert brush I have here, and I'm going to take some of this white. And I'm not going to put the fuzzies on it just yet, but I am going to put a wash of white on his face. Just, I'm not trying to cover all of my buttermilk. I just want to just get that little wash of white on here. And it's just completely watered down white paint, basically. So you can sort of still see the buttermilk under there. But this is just a good foundation for me to put his eyes on, nose on, and then I can add more of the fuzzy stuff after. So that's kind of where the prep work was. Now let me dry this. And I want to add a little bit more white to my fur. So, like I said, it fades down just a smidge. Like when it's, I mean, you can still see it really well, don't get me wrong. But if you come in with a second coat, you can really kind of spruce that up. And I'm just going to, you know, spot do it because I don't want to cover up all my colors, like I said. So I'm just adding a little more. But you can see in that spot how much brighter that white shows in that little spot, just with that second bit going on there. Makes a difference. And we're just going to repeat this little process. And I think until our time runs out, because we have 6 minutes. Ladies, it's a pretty good start on them though, I must say. Yeah, so you can see that we kind of have half of that finished there, and you can see how much brighter his fur looks now. Okay, so yeah, that's looking good. Do the same thing on his ears. Alrighty, over to his head. And then I think I will have time to do a little outer shading on the outer edges of his body, which I want to do before we go too much farther too. So I think I may have time to squeeze that in. And I mean, even if you, like, I'll put this second coat on, but if it may need a little bit more of a spot paint on there after we get that second coat on. So, I mean, there's no rules. You can go back and touch it up at any time if you're feeling like it needs a little bit more. By all means, that's quite fine. And his face kind of faded down a little bit, so I'm going to just add a little more white to that. That white tricks you sometimes. It's pretty bright when you first put it on and when it's wet. And then when it dries down, it tends to fade out on you. Okay. And 3 minutes. So we have our green here and then our purple up here. So I'm going to use just the Hauser light green. And I'm going to put a little bit of that just where the green sort of meets my lamb. So I'll stop right there. So we'll add purple on the outer up here. But I'm just going to put a little bit of that green around my sheep here, and my lamb or whatever. Just to give a little bit of depth to it, because he was kind of just out there, floating out there on his own. So now we've added a little more depth on that side. So we're going to do the same thing over here. And then I brought that down into my corner too. I didn't mention that. I did. So this one's kind of tricky. I mean, you can bring that up until you safely think it's okay, because it kind of starts to turn a little murky, a little purple, a little greenish. So I think I'm only going to go like, a bit there. I'm going to stop there, which is fine. So now it looks like he's got some ground behind him. It's a little bit more defined. And then we can take some of that royal purple and do the same sort of thing up here. You can add a little bit of that. I don't know if I wanted it that dark, but bring that in around our lammy, around those edges, and it just gives that little bit of depth in behind your painting. 1 minute, ladies. 1 minute left. So I'm going to continue to do that over here, this side. Now I'm not sure that I need to go too crazy with it and go all the way around, but I did want to put a little bit of depth in behind him here, and I want to flip him back up so you can see how far we're at before our time flips. But you can see it just adds that little bit of depth in behind there, and you can add it wherever you like. You don't have to be precise. And there we have it. So that's as far as we're going to get this evening. So I will post for my next Craft Around the Clock segment. We will finish this little guy up. We're going to bring our little line drawing back over here, and we're going to place his eyes and face on here and work on those. Give this guy a face. Now, my message or my comments might not be, they're giving me the gears as usual. Hello, Miss Bell's Craft and Vintage Marketplace. I never know what people's first names are, so forgive me. You'll have to tell me. So I'm just transferring his eyes over here and his little nose. We'll get those based in. So we're here until 10. And then there's probably more Craft Around the Clock ladies after me. All right, so here we go. So we're going to fill those in with some black. Now these aren't complicated eyes. They're not complicated. I say that and I mean it. All right, so when I finish this little guy, I didn't put the template up in my shop yet because I wanted to finish him first for everyone. And after tonight, I will have it up. If anybody wants to paint this little guy, the template will be on my shop page. So I'm just outlining these so I can fill them in. It looks a little weird right now. It's looking a little weird. So if I don't see your comments, my FB page has been a little wonky. I don't know why. I hope they get it straightened out soon. I have to kind of mess around with it and go out and back in just to see new comments pop up. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what the deal is there. They're not loving on me there very much lately. Oops. Oopsie. We went outside his eye. Let's fix. Some water on there and we'll get rid of that little oops. It's all fixable. I did it again. It's been a long day, my friends. It's been a long day. All right, well, we must fix that one up this front side too. Let's just get some water on there. And we'll pull that back a little bit. We're going to go around these eyes with some burnt umber shortly here anyway, so I won't fret about it too much. Let's not fret about it. Thank you for sprinkling, Kelly. See, I did have to go in and out. Yes, Carolyn, he will be fun. Hello, Miss Sue. There's Carolyn. All right. Hello, Nicholas. New to my page. Thanks for joining in. Yes, he'll be a fun one to paint. Nice and springy looking. All right, his nose I'm going to base with some burnt umber. And then we're going to give this a dry before we move on to the next step. All right. And also, I'm just going to line this little mouth with some burnt umber as well. Maybe a little bit more than that. And he'll start to take shape here in a second when he gets some face details. Okay. So let's dry that. Yeah, Anita, it's been doing that. Maybe I need to reboot my whole phone. That could be it for sure. I'll give that a try next time. Maybe I might need an update too. I don't even know. I haven't checked for one in ages. So I'm just going to get a second coat of burnt umber on the nose. Fill that in a little bit more. Alrighty. And this little eye over here is a little bit damp still. Hey, my friends. All right, so next up, I want to go around his eyes with some of that burnt umber. So we're going to shade around those just a little bit, give those a little depth. It's been a while, it's been a week since this has been on my paint table, so I've been kind of anxious to get him finished. So we can, you know, not stare at him half done. And we're going to add a little bit more. So I'm just layering this up with a second coat. He's kind of got some dreamy eyes, this little guy. All right. And then next up, he has brown eyes. So we're going to make his eyes brown. I'm just going to, and so we're just going to use some burnt umber for that too. I just want to get in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. And then we're just going to shade that little iris in there with some of that burnt umber. In a little circle. Now, I know that you might not be able to see it super well on camera because it's brown on black. So, but I can assure you it is on there. Yeah, you can't, I don't know if you can see it really well, but we'll put a second coat on here in a second. But it still might be a little tough for you to see given the dark colors, but you can trust me that it's on there. So we're just going in a circle, shading that circle in there. Dry that. Can you guys see that? You probably can see a little hue of it. It is torturous looking at an unfinished project. I agree. It was kind of driving me crazy. I just wanted to finish it. Oh, thank you guys. All right, so we're going to go over that again. And just darken that up a little bit. Maybe with the second coat, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. Eyes are a little bit intimidating for people sometimes. They sometimes look more difficult than they really are. So just kind of take it step by step and break it down. And it's not as difficult as it looks. All right, so there's his little brown eyes. I'm going to grab my liner and some white. I'm going to dry those first because I don't want to get in that wet paint. And we're just going to line these eyes a little bit with this white, just on the bottom edge here. Don't want very much on my brush. It's going to be a very fine line right along that bottom edge. kind of from corner to corner. Like so. And then we're going to give him a few little eyelashes. I mean, why not? We're just going to do some little fine ones here at the top. And then you can add the highlight in his eyes. So again, just with my liner brush. And then once we get the highlight in here, it appears like he can see all of a sudden. It's kind of a magical thing. And I'm just kind of tapping that out a little bit down here too. It's just like a little glare spot on his eyes. And you can brighten it up if you need to. All right. As for his nose, we're going to shade around the outer edge of that too. Give that a little depth. Same with the burnt umber. Checking my time. And then we're going to go above his mouth a little bit and below it as well. So basically all the way around all of it. I'm going to flip him upside down so I can get this a little better. Now I'm going to dry that. And I usually like to go over my shades a couple times just to make sure that it's covered well. The first coat sometimes goes on a little, I don't know, it's not quite as much on there as you want it to be. And that's okay. We can layer it up. I mean, it's better to layer up than put too much on all at one time, I think. This is my opinion. I am not saying it's so for everyone that does it this way or whatever way they do their shades. Everyone has their own sort of techniques, their own style. There's no right way or wrong way. I want a little bit more in this little divot in there. And I think that's pretty good. All right, and then I'm just going to highlight the top of his nose with a little bit of white. Get some water on my brush and get some of that off of there. All right, and now that we have his face details in there, I'm going to go back into my white and my burlap because here you can see it's kind of like a really stark line there on his forehead, and I want to soften that a little bit. So I'm going to grab some burlap. And I have my round brush here. And we're just going to bring a little bit of this in, kind of in between his eyes first. And then we're going to bring some more white in. But you can kind of bring that down in here. And I'm just kind of going in a circular motion with my brush. So we're just kind of darkening that backdrop before we put our white on here. And what I'm trying to achieve is to get rid of that harsh line in there. And hopefully we'll achieve that here in a second. I'm going to dry that so he looks a little silly right now, but hopefully this will soften that down a little bit. All right, so now we'll go into our white and we'll bring those little circular kind of, we're trying to give the illusion of the fluffiness of the lamb by just putting these little circular, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm doing though. You can see what I'm doing. Circular motion. And we can just layer this up as we go. But you want that burlap to just sort of peek out from there. You don't want it to be, it's just kind of hiding in the background. We've just added that little layer in there to give it a little bit of dimension, is what I guess I'm trying to say. But as you can see, the more I add my white in layers on here with my little fluffiness, it just kind of fades into the background, but it's still sort of there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the rest of his face with the white. I want that fluffy sort of look on his face too. So we're just going to go around his eyes. We're not trying to cover up any of those shades that we already put on here. Around his eyes. We're just kind of going in between all of those things. And you can bring some off the edge of his face too, a little bit, you know, to give that little fluffy appearance. And we're just softening down that harsh line, but you can still sort of see it peeking out there. So we did the same thing down here on his body, the last video. So we're just kind of replicating that. So he all kind of looks the same. I have my words are not working this evening. Just trying to read what you're saying to me. Thank you, Kathy. Hi, Laura. Thanks for the hearts, guys. But you can see as we layer up, I haven't put anything under his chin here yet, but you can see just by adding it in here and layering it up, how it's changed his look, how it's changed and softened his appearance, I think. Goodness sakes. Told you it's been a long day. I have no words. My paintbrush is popping out of my hand. Oh my goodness. What is wrong with me? It's never a dull moment. At the craft round the clock segments. We're getting a little silly. And the way you wrote that, his eyeballs just popped out. Sue, I'm not sure how to take that. I hope that's a good thing. All right, so we can, you can play around with this and layer this up as, until you're happy. And that's usually, my motto is, stop when you're happy with how it looks. There's, again, this would be your interpretation if and when you paint one of these. So I'm just showing you how I did it. It's not, you can make more fluff if you want. I think that's pretty good though. I think we're going to stop there. But anyways, I think he's softened his look a little bit. So we're going to give this a good dry. And then we're going to work on our lavender next, which is very simple too. It's not extremely difficult to do the lavender either. So let's dry his face so I can bring my line drawing back over and get my lavender stems in place. I do need a Mountain Dew. I have a little bit of lemon water right now. It's not nearly as exciting as my Mountain Dew, but my Mountain Dew or my Canada Dry Ginger Ale are my go-tos. So thank you, Daisy. Oh, good. It's a good thing that his eyes popped out. Hello from Italy. Oh my goodness. I hope that's what that means. All right, so we have our little lambs pretty much done. I'd say he's, I'm happy with how he looks. So we're going to bring these little lavender sprigs over here. And I'm just going to line them so we know where they're at on my canvas. And we'll know where to put them. So I'm just putting a light line with my carbon or my graphite. All right. So I'm not sure if you can see those, but you will once I get the paint on there. So I'm going to use it did make them come alive for sure. So I'm just going to use some of the Hauser medium green for my stems and my liner brush. So I think we're going to accomplish getting this little guy done tonight, which makes me happy. Hope it makes you happy. You get to see him finished. So I'm just lining these in with my liner brush. And when I designed this, I thought, maybe I'll put some lavender up in here and all around. But I thought, let's keep it simple. And I think it turned out pretty cute with just the few simple little sprigs of lavender around the front of him. Again, if you're painting it, you can add as many lavender sprigs as you want. But I thought simple was best. And this just gives it another dimension to the whole painting by adding the lavender out front here. All right, so bear with me while I get these little stems in place. And I think I missed one. Yeah, right up in here, but we can add it in a second. A little short one. And I mean, I'm not worrying about how perfect these stems are either. I'm not really concerned about that. Thank you, Mary Lou. You don't think there's that many stems until you have to paint all the stems. There's a few. And then I forgot to put the little short one right here, and I'll add it right now, just freehand. So there's one that kind of sticks up right here in the front, and it's a short little tip of one. All right, so that's pretty good. We have those in place now, and then we can work on the actual flowers, which are very simple, like I said, to do. So we're going to use some royal purple. Yes, it would make a good Easter card for sure. So he's adorable. Really, he's just cute as a button. All right, royal purple. So we're going to use our dark purple first, which is our royal. And I'm going to use my number 5 round brush again. So we'll just start over here at the left and work our way over there, over to the right. So this one kind of will come right off the edge. So we're just going to kind of tap and just make it, kind of like we would make Christmas trees, but we're using purple instead. So we're going to, as we go down, make them a little wider. And it doesn't matter that they're all one color right now. We're going to add another bit of lighter purple here in a second to give them a little bit of, to make them look a little more real. So that's kind of basically it, just tapping those in kind of like a cone shape or a tree shape. I kind of feel like that's what it's like. But as you go down, you get a little wider. And then, you'll stop at some point. You don't want to go too wide. And then you'll just keep them all kind of, once you get about the third one on, you kind of keep those at about the same width. And we're just going to bring those right in there. And you can, bring some up off the edge a little bit just to make it look a little more, like a flower would look. They are all have their own little shape here. And then as you get to the bottom of where you want to stop, I kind of come back in a little bit. Like that. So that's basically it. And then we're just going to do the same thing all the way across here. And just keep loading with more paint as you need to. And this one's going to go right on top of our little lamb. And I think I'll stop a bit there. And then we'll do this tall one over here. And this one's kind of a smaller one. I didn't put too much on this one. I kind of stopped about down here. And then, of course, this one kind of, my paper was a little bit, that I did my demo on, I think was a little bit more narrow than this canvas, but this one can kind of go off the edge of the canvas too. And then we have our little short one in here that kind of goes right off the canvas. Now I didn't add any other leaves or anything, which I mean you could do if you wanted to, you know, add some leaves or grass in around here, but I thought it looked just fine just the way it was. So I kind of liked it. Let me get this centered, sorry. There we go. And I'll just dry that. Now for the contrasting purple, the lighter purple, you could use a lighter purple that's already pre-mixed paint like this. And I mean, there's many. I don't know if I have any sitting here. I might, I don't know. But I mean, there's, you know, wisteria, there's many light colored purples, but I'm just going to mix my royal purple with a little bit of white to bring it down a value. So, I mean, it saves having to have all different bottles and everything. You know, you can just make your royal purple a little bit lighter just by mixing it with a little bit of white. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring that down to a lighter shade of more a lavender shade. Imagine that. And then we're just going to tap on top of these. Now we're not going to cover our other purple completely. We want that peeking out in there. But you want to just tap that lighter color on top of here. Just random. Just to give it that little bit of contrast in there. And you're going to do that on all of them. You can see how it changes the look of the little lavender sprigs just by adding that second color. I mean, this is a whimsical painting, and these are not, you know, perfect to scale flowers, and they are designed to give the illusion of what the flower looks like. And I think we achieved it pretty well. All right, and then you can come back and, you know, like, because it will fade down a smidge as it dries. If you want to add a little bit more on a second layer, you can, just to brighten that up a bit. Because as it dries, it kind of fades down to a really light color. So if you want it brighter, just add a second coat in there. And you can even just hit that just a little tiny bit. Not even covering all of what you just put on there. You can just kind of spot, add a little bit more. Oops, I got a little large. I'm just very lightly touching my surface, not hardly touching the end of my brush on here at all. Super light touch. Thank you, Denise. Guaranteed it is. And we'll dry that. I'm just going to clean that purple out of my brush. And then lastly, if you want to just put plain white on your brush, you can add a little highlight to some of these with just the white. And I don't really want to add a whole lot of that. I just want a little tiny smidge of white in there just to put on the top edge of those here and there. And that just gives that extra little highlight with the plain white. What do you think so far? This is kind of our last step, and then he's done. And we have like 5 minutes left, so we have lots of time to get these last little highlights on here, and then we'll show you what he looks like. I like it too, Carolyn. I think he's good. I like him a lot. Very fun to paint. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Kathy. Now, as always, my membership friends, you will get the line drawing as a bonus for our membership ladies. So when I post it, don't go purchasing it. It will be in our membership group. But for anyone else that is not a member, you will be able to get it in our shop if you want the template. But you little ladies in the membership, you will be able to paint yours up. I will have them posted. I'm not going to promise tonight because I have so many other things to do, but I will get them in there, I promise. Thank you, Kim. All right. So we have 3 minutes still. So there you have it. Now, what you can do also, since we have a couple minutes left, on your stems, I mean, if you don't want to stop at just that one color, you can grab some of the Hauser light green, and on that one side of your stem, you can add a little bit of a highlight on that, just to give it some dimension too. And you can also add a little bit of the dark green. I'll show you that in a second if we have enough time. There's always more you can add to your painting. All right, so we can get some of the dark green. And you can add a little bit of that on your stems too. And I mean, you might not be able to see it super well on camera, but it does change the whole look of them. It just gives it a little something extra. And One more thing you could do, you know, if you were being picky, like sometimes I'm a little picky, you can take some of that burnt umber and just shade on your lamb with that burnt umber on either side of your stems, just to give that shadow under those, if you know what I'm saying. Doesn't have to be super dark. I mean, you can just add a little hue of that brown on there, just to give a shadow so it's not so 2D looking. You add a little shadow on there and it just gives it that depth and makes it look a little more real. You can even go around your flowers a little bit if you wanted to. Like so. And I think our time is up, but we got them done. So I'm happy about this. I'm happy. There he is, ladies. I hope you enjoyed these 2 segments to get him done, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways watching. All right. Thanks, everybody. And make